I'm Melly.
I'm Liam.
And this is Beggars Believe, home of scams, shams, hoaxes, pranks, and charlatans. Stories that you shouldn't believe because someone is lying.
Liars.
Yes. Y'all comfy?
Yes.
Yeah. It's going to be hopefully better than last week because I kind of messed up the audio.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oops.
It sort of sounded like I was yelling at you while you were answering from a adjoining room.
You all the time.
Yes, I know.
They get a reality of what we do.
Our friendship is just based on some weirdness. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of focusing on one hoax, we're going to look at a person behind a bunch of hoaxes.
Oh, okay.
And the really fascinating time and place that they lived in. So we're actually going to the mid-1800s. Two men are known for being mischievous, quick-witted, and very involved in pranks. They briefly were roommates. And
Did
even
they also go to Hogwarts?
They did not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. They even shared a work desk, and both were writers. Only one became a household name. The other one kind of faded into obscurity, which is actually one of my favorite tropes, especially with musicians when you're like, yeah. But you've probably heard of Mark Twain.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, that's a pen name. We are talking about a guy who wrote under the pen name Dan DeQuille.
Sounds French.
It is not. But probably haven't heard of him.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, like I said, faded into obscurity. Mark Twain come up a couple of times in our podcast before, sort of patron saint of hoaxes, because he likes doing that. But we're talking about his friend Dan DeQuille. Dan DeQuille being the pen name, he was actually named William Wright, and he was born in Knox County, Ohio, into a Quaker family in 1829.
Oh, okay.
He was the firstborn of his family and went on to have 8 siblings. That's about all we know about his early life until he was 20 and everyone moved to Iowa. He met his wife Carolyn Coleman there, and they were married in 1853. They went on to have 5 children together, but 2 died in infancy. Don't get too attached to those names because apparently he just kind of up and left to go searching for fame and fortune.
Oh.
And it was one of those I'll send you money home, but if you do the math, she was almost certainly pregnant at the time with 2 children under the age of 5 and 2 dead children.
She's fine.
Yeah, she'll be fine.
It's all right.
We'll send you a little spending money every now and then. It's great.
Sure. I'll send money to you.
So he's off to make some money and send some of it home to his wife, who is almost certainly having a nervous breakdown, and he was planning on prospecting.
Ooh.
Good old prospecting for gold.
I dig it.
Yeah. But it seemed he made way more money writing than he ever did prospecting. He had read articles about the life of a prospector and sell them to San Francisco newspapers. They were really flowery, exaggerated, homespun.
So better at pandering.
Good one. Good.
I got a whole slew. I got
So for a few years, William led this nomadic sort of life, drifting around prospecting California, where he developed a lifelong struggle with alcoholism. So,
seems like a miner's thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then he found out that there was silver in Nevada. So he ended up in Virginia City, and it was the literal definition of a boomtown. It did not exist. There were no permanent structures, no permanent populations until the discovery of the first major silver deposit in 1859. And overnight, mines started appearing and a town appeared. So, last week we did Ong's Hat, and we kind of had a really stupid way to name a town.
Yeah.
The reason that Virginia City has named it was there was a man who was nicknamed Old Virginie Finney, who tripped and dropped a bottle of whiskey just outside the saloon.
Oh, yeah, totally. Name it after him.
Yeah, apparently that was just like the most noteworthy thing to name someone after. The load of silver ore that was found there was named the Comstock Lode.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The Comstock Lode.
Okay, what are we doing?
So there's a few stories about the discovery of the silver, with the credit of the discovery going to not someone named Comstock, but two brothers named Grosh, who died of frostbite and sepsis before they could claim the find that they had made. But apparently they were just like living with a guy named Henry T.P. Comstock, and after he heard about his death, he like
These names are wild. T.P. Comstock.
Yep.
That used to be my stripper name.
So he hears about their death, basically goes through their stuff and finds like it's all of this silver and made the claim on the site. So he didn't find the actual silver in the ground. He found the silver in his dead friend's closet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Finders keepers?
Yeah, exactly. After the initial discovery, more silver's found. Each one was called a bonanza. I actually did not know the origin of the term bonanza.
Right?
No, not bananas. We're done with bananas. These are bonanzas.
I'm sorry. Bonanza.
Yeah. And there are 6 major bonanzas found within 5 years. So as you can imagine, there's a ton of prospectors showing up in town trying to make claims, and with them all of the town and the business that exists to support such a town shows up. And one of the things was a newspaper, which was called the Territorial Enterprise, which actually existed in Carson City and moved there in 1862. Dan DeQuille still was going by William Wright at this time. He hadn't earned his official pen name. And he shows up town, tried prospecting, failed miserably. For everything I could see, this man never actually found a precious metal. So instead, he applies at the Territorial Enterprise and got a job as a writer. And his wife and kids, again, did not, in fact, join him there. He was still sending money to them.
Still at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Losing her mind.
So he is a fantastic writer and had a background in geology and mining. So he sort of worked that all into his writing, which obviously was pertinent. The same year, another writer joined the ranks of the Territorial Enterprise, Samuel Clemens. And it's while working there that each of them picks up their pen names, Mark Twain and Dan DeQuille.
Each other, kind of like a trail name, or?
You know,
I don't imagine.
Mark Twain has like all of these legends about why he came to his name. Mm-hmm. He said he stole it from a dead writer. But there's
the one with the silver in the closet? No.
That's a dead prospector. Keep your 1800s perfection straight.
Sorry.
But some other people said it was like a saying on steamboats, and it's one of those things like no one's 100% sure. I tried really hard because I was trying to see if Dan DeQuille, because I'm like, oh, quill, pen, you know. Yeah. But the way it's spelled, it's either part of a boat or it means basically a part of a bowling pin. Like it's the wrong kind of quill. So I'm not sure if there was a play on words there.
I've been bowling.
Yeah, exactly. So the two of them are really good friends. They have really similar sense of humor, and both of them were playing pranks. They roomed together. They shared the same desk. I'm assuming at different times because I do have a picture of this desk and it was too small for 2 people to write at the time.
Each room held the same pen as they wrote.
Yeah. As odd as it probably sounds, everyone assumed Dan DeQuille was going to go on to fame and fortune and Mark Twain was going to be the one who sort of didn't. They kind of found this way to fill in their slow news days, which would apparently happen around the Silver Rush town, and that was just to make shit up. They would call these stories quaints, and they would put them in the newspaper with nothing to say they weren't true or anything else to indicate that they were just a made-up story. The first one I found was February 5th, 1865. It was actually a different newspaper called The Golden Era. Back then he used to write for multiple. He wrote an account about a petrified man who had been found, which considering our whole second episode was all about petrified men being found.
Yeah.
He peppered this whole story with a lot of real facts about geology and mining. It supposedly was the body of a Native American and had mineralized into a mass of sulfur of silver, slightly mixed with copper and iron.
Oh.
I like the idea that this guy just becomes all the precious metal.
Yeah, exactly. He is a statue worth.
Yeah, and like I said, it ties into this whole obsession at the time with petrified man. And Mark Twain went on to write several stories that mention Cardiff giants. So I'm kind of wondering if he was involved in that tale. Okay. It doesn't say, but, you know. Speaking of Mark Twain, he left Virginia City before most of the other quaints that I could find. So that's the only one he could have been complicit in the writing of. Mm-hmm. So why did Mark Twain leave town? He was avoiding a duel with a newspaper editor.
Oh, a duel. Threw the gauntlet down and was like, sir?
And because it's a newspaper editor, my brain is going, I want pictures of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Only with a rapier.
Or Superman.
DeQuille's next false tale became his best known. He wrote a story that a prospector traveling through the Paharangat Valley discovered traveling stones. He said they found them on a rocky plain where the rocks were clustered together in like little shallow depressions. The stones were perfect spheres and all under the size of a walnut. When you put them on a flat surface, they'd roll towards each other until they touched, no matter how far apart the stones were. In the article, they said it had something to do with magnets. It's not even that great of a made-up story, honestly.
Yeah.
But it initially wasn't terribly well received because it's not that great of a well-written story or anything.
No petrified men. They weren't interested.
No, but then it made its way to the foreign press, who translated the story and added a whole bunch of spins on it. And for some reason specifically, the Germans were really fascinated with DeQuille's traveling stones. It was the 1800s. They had...
I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. So Wells Drury, who was the editor and friend of DeQuille, wrote when the report was printed in Germany, and I quote, "It caused a furor among a select set of men who are dabbling in the study of electromagnet currents. Their secretary wrote to Dan demanding further details. In vain, he disclaimed the verity of the skit. The denial was treated as unprofessional attempt to keep his brother scientists ignorant of the truth required concerning natural laws, the effect of which they were convinced had been first observed and recorded by Dan DeQuille, eminent scientist of Virginia State, Nevada."
Oh, gosh. Talk about stacking your resume.
So take that story with a grain of salt, because DeQuille himself was known to be a bit of a prankster who would make some stuff up too, but it was obvious DeQuille was kind of sick of the inquiries of this. 5 years later, he was still getting all of these requests in the mail to please send me these traveling stones. DeQuille reported that he had an order come in from a local postmaster for 5 pounds of traveling stones. And on March 31st, 1872 issue of the Enterprise, he laid out clean that no, this is totally fake.
Yeah.
But he did it in a very tongue-in-cheek way because it was that era. He said he didn't have any of the stones. He wasn't sure how anyone thought they could make money out of traveling stones, and said, go ask Mark Twain for them. He might have a couple of bushels laying around.
There you go.
It doesn't stop P.T. Barnum. P.T. Barnum tried to buy some. Yeah.
Of course.
So finally, DeQuille writes this scathing letter, not only saying that the initial article was fake, written as so in an idle moment, but also mocking anyone who believed that there were traveling stones in the first place, saying the story of the little traveling stones seemed to supply a want that had long been felt to fill exactly a certain vacant look in the minds of men. He helped us this article where he called them, and I quote, diabolical cobbles would end the inquiries, but it didn't. In the 15 years that people were asking about the rocks, Virginia City had grown up, full of brick houses fed by gas and sewer lines. There was a major hotel with an elevator, 3 theaters, an opera house, 4 churches, and 3 daily newspapers, including the Territorial Enterprise. Yeah, exactly. Eventually, Virginia City was actually considered the richest city in the United States. Mark Twain even came back to visit in 1866, and as he was walking back to his hotel, he was robbed at gunpoint. For the stone. No, it turns out that it was a bunch of the other newspaper guys were pulling a prank on him, but it was more of a, YouTube. It's just a prank, bro!
I just stole all your money. I beat you up,
I'm robbing you at gunpoint with a mouse gun. You're in fear of your life. Not a good prank. Not a good prank. Yeah. The perpetrators were the foreman of the composing room at the Territorial Enterprise. Twain went around to write about it and kind of did this, cheerful version of it, but it's still, you can't walk away from being robbed at gunpoint.
Yeah.
So during all of this, DeQuille, apparently not learning his lesson, decided to write up more fake stories that would be something familiar to these people, which was how hot Death Valley is. Which, anyone who's there, I'm sure, would complain about the heat in Death Valley. It's called Death Valley for a reason. So this story appeared on the Territorial Enterprise as well on July 2nd. He said there was a man named Jonathan Newhouse who invented solar armor, which sounds like some sort of solar punk.
Yeah. I'm kind of digging it.
Yeah. It's this long jacket with a hood made of sponges soaked in water. Yeah, I lost you.
I'm thinking some cool Mad Max thing. No, it's Bob. I mean, what's Monet Exchange with a sponge dress? So
the wearer would carry this rubber sack under his right armpits that led to a tube on their head, and when you got hot, you would just kind of squeeze the rubber sack.
The water out.
Yeah, in a motion, I'm assuming when people did the fake fart sound.
Yeah.
Or bagpipes, one of the two.
That's ridiculous.
So when it got hot, you would re-moisten the armor, and supposedly because of this, the hotter the sun, the colder the person inside would be. So this fictional Jonathan Newhouse, because again, this is all fake, none of this actually happened, decided to test this out by going to Death Valley, which is definitely stress testing your sponge-based outfit. The next day, a Native American found him. He had only made it 20 miles before freezing to death.
The original scrub daddy.
And he was said to have an inch-long icicle hanging from his nose in the middle of Death Valley. So this hoax first appeared again in the San Francisco Times, and then it spread. New York Times, Scientific American, and then ended up in Europe, by which point it was very much separated from the how cold or how hot is Death Valley. Well, if you did the opposite, you'd freeze to death. Mm-hmm. In London, it appeared in the Daily Telegraph, who doubted the story.
Did they do fact-checking back then? They're like, oh, this seems good. Let's post it.
Well, things were being transmitted by, Morse code. It's not like you can be like, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah. Excuse me?
London doubted the story, saying, the marvelous stories which have come from the plains are apt to be received with an incredulity by our transatlantic kinsmen who dwell upon the eastern seaboard of the United States. We confess that, although the fate of Mr. Newhouse is relayed by the Western journalist in a grand series, we require some additional confirmation before we unhesitantly accept it. But they said it might be plausible.
Yep. Okay.
So close.
Disclaimer, they might be messing with us again.
Yeah.
They've done it to us in the past, but maybe.
We really want this to be true. The fact that the Londoners were on the fence meant that DeQuille wrote a sequel to this a month later. He made up a coroner in California who had apparently investigated the body and identified the fictional Newhouse and verified that he had died by being frozen to death, but then he added more to thicken the plot. The inquest found that it wasn't water DeQuille was soaking in. It was an unknown substance just labeled ether, which had made the temperature drop so much. The fake coroner said that maybe Newhouse had tried to get out of the coat when it started to get cold and accidentally squeezed his armpit a whole lot and doused himself in the ether. They were apparently testing the contents of his nose icicle.
30% snot, 5% silver, 2% copper.
So,
for some reason, the rest was iron.
We have questions. He ate a lot of spinach.
A lot of spinach.
So I don't know if London caught on at this point that it was a hoax or just lost interest, but there was no response. DeQuille was kept busy for a while as he was hired by the mine owners to write an in-depth book about the history of Virginia City and the surrounding area. He mixed in geology, history, and slices of life stories. There's a huge amount of support from the book, especially from Mark Twain, but it sold really poorly everywhere except for Nevada and California. And I actually got it through Interlibrary Loan, and they had to hunt. There aren't that many copies in existence anymore. Meanwhile, the mines are starting to dry up. The city is starting to decline. In 1893, the Enterprise stopped publication, publishing the line, "For sufficient reasons, we stop."
For a sufficient reason.
DeQuille remained in Virginia City, writing as a correspondent until his health took a turn, partially thanks to the lifelong battle with alcoholism. He moved to West Branch, Iowa, moved in with his daughter, who apparently forgave him for wandering out, and died
This whole time, he just never went back to the wife?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
Oh, okay. What?
Yeah. Died in 1898 at the age of 69. With Virginia City as a tourist attraction now. History buffs come in to see the desk where DeQuille and Mark Twain wrote, but most of them are more interested in Mark Twain. DeQuille was inducted to the Nevada Writers Hall of Fame in 1994, and in 2005, an opera was based on his work, which is really random.
That's interesting.
The employer of Twain and DeQuille said regretfully, "Isn't it so singular that Mark Twain should live and Dan DeQuille fade out? If anyone had asked me in 1863 which was to be a mortal name, I would have unhesitantly said Dan DeQuille." So yeah, that's our story of Traveling Stone.
That is how it got away with it multiple times. And
yeah.
even afterwards, we're like, there would be some validity to what they're saying. They've gotten us. But I like this idea.
I love the era of things where, it was socially acceptable to just, I'm just going to make up the news.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have anything to write.
Yeah, and it wasn't politically motivated. It was just, I'm bored.
That's hilarious.
I actually got so distracted researching this because I kept going on these, Virginia City, there was a fire and all of the stuff. There was people trying to rescue a church during a fire that destroyed most of the city, and, the mine owners came out and said, ignore the church, we'll rebuild it, go save the mines, and if you're still trying to put out the fire on the church, we'll fire you.
Oh, geez.
It was a weird, there was a lot of little stuff, and his book is...
Now, was there coal in these mines?
No, it was silver.
Just
silver, yeah. Oh. There was some gold, but it was mostly silver.
Okay. I would make sense of it if there was, coal in there, because coal can burn forever, and then it's ruined. But, what's going to burn in the mine? I guess the wood supports.
Yeah, the supports.
Which, yeah.
I've never been in a silver. I've been in multiple coal mines because of where I live. But you want me to text
Take it from this side of the mic, and don't believe everything you hear. This has been Beggar's Belief. Please check us out anywhere you get podcasts or on YouTube. We are on social media like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as Beggar's Belief Podcast. Likes, comments, and feedback are